My name is Daniel Crawford, and I'm 52 years old. For the past 4 years, I've been raising my twin daughters, Lily and Rose, on my own. Their mother, my wife of 15 years, passed away from cancer when the girls were only 3. It's been the hardest journey of my life. But those 2 little girls have been my reason to keep going, to keep getting up every morning and putting one foot in front of the other. I work as a maintenance supervisor at Hartwell Industries, a large manufacturing company on the edge of town. It's honest work and it pays the bills, though there's never much left over at the end of the month. The company has been good to me over the years. They gave me time off when Sarah was sick. And they've been understanding when I've had to leave early for the girls, school events or doctor appointments. But finding reliable childcare has always been a struggle. My mother helps when she can, but she's 74 now and doesn't have the energy to keep up with 2 active 7-year-olds. I've tried several babysitters over the years. Some were kind but unreliable. Others were punctual but seemed more interested in their phones than in my daughters. I needed someone who would actually care about Lily and Rose, not just watch the clock until I got home. That's why I was so relieved when I found the posting on the community board at the local coffee shop. It was handwritten on a simple index card. Experienced with children, patient and caring, references available, reasonable rates. There was a phone number and a name, Sophie Mitchell. I called that evening after putting the girls to bed. A young woman answered, her voice warm and friendly. She sounded educated, articulate. We talked for nearly half an hour. She asked thoughtful questions about the girls, their interests, their routines. She didn't just ask about pay and hours like most of the others had. She seemed genuinely interested in getting to know my family. I love working with children, Sophie said. There's something pure about their view of the world. They remind us what really matters in life. We arranged to meet the following Saturday morning at my house so she could meet Lily and Rose. I warned her that they could be shy at first, especially with new people. They'd been through so much loss already, and they were cautious about letting new people into their lives. When Sophie arrived that Saturday, I opened the door to find a young woman in her late 20s with shoulder length, blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans and a plain cream-colored sweater, no jewelry except for small stud earrings. She carried a canvas bag over her shoulder and had the warmest smile I'd seen in a long time. "You must be Daniel," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Sophie." There was something about her that immediately put me at ease. Maybe it was the kindness in her eyes, or the way she didn't seem rushed or distracted. She was fully present, which was rare these days. The girls were playing with their dolls in the living room when we walked in. They looked up cautiously at the stranger in their home. "Lily, Rose, this is Sophie," I said gently. "She might be helping to take care of you sometimes when Daddy has to work." Sophie didn't rush toward them or try to force interaction. Instead, she sat down on the floor at a respectful distance and opened her canvas bag. "I hope it's okay," she said, glancing at me, "but I brought some art supplies. I thought maybe we could draw together if the girls wanted to." Lily, always the braver of the 2, edged closer. "What kind of art supplies?" "Colored pencils, markers, some really nice drawing paper," Sophie said, pulling them out. "I like to draw animals." "Do you like animals?" Within 15 minutes, all 3 of them were sitting on the floor together, drawing and laughing. Rose, who usually took much longer to warm up to people, was showing Sophie her favorite stuffed bunny. I stood in the doorway to the kitchen watching in amazement. This woman had a gift. We arranged for Sophie to start the following week. She would come 3 afternoons after school and occasionally on weekends when I had to work overtime. Her rates were surprisingly reasonable, less than the other sitters had charged. "Are you sure?" I asked. "That seems low for someone with your experience." "It's fine," she said with a smile. "I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing it because I enjoy it." Over the next few months, Sophie became a fixture in our lives. The girls adored her. She would take them to the park, help them with their homework, and teach them things I never would have thought of. One day I came home to find they'd planted a small herb garden in pots on the back porch. Another time, they'd made homemade pizzas together. And the kitchen was covered in flour, but the girls were beaming with pride. Sophie never complained about the mess or the work. She cleaned up after their activities and always had dinner started by the time I got home. She asked me about my day and listened when I talked about the challenges at work. It had been a long time since I'd had another adult to talk to like that. One evening, about 3 months after Sophie started, I got called in for an emergency at work. A major piece of equipment had broken down and they needed me right away. I called Sophie in a panic. "I know it's late notice," I said, "but could you possibly stay with the girls overnight? I'll pay you double. I just don't have anyone else I can call." "Of course," she said without hesitation. "Don't worry about anything. The girls and I will be just fine." When I got home the next morning, exhausted and covered in grease, I found Sophie making pancakes while the girls set the table. They'd had what they described as the best sleepover ever. Sophie had let them stay up a little late to watch a movie, had made popcorn, and had painted their nails in the morning. "Thank you," I said, and I meant it from the bottom of my heart. "You're a lifesaver, Sophie." She just smiled. "They're wonderful girls, Daniel." "It's my pleasure." But something was nagging at me. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Sophie was too good to be true in some ways. She never talked about herself much. When I asked about her family or her background, she would deflect or change the subject. She drove a fairly new car, which seemed odd for someone working as a part-time babysitter. And there was something refined about her, a certain Polish that didn't quite fit with her simple clothes and modest lifestyle. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I'd been called to the main office building for a mandatory safety meeting. I didn't often go to that part of the company. My work was usually in the plant itself, in the machinery and equipment. The executive offices were like a different world, all polished floors and expensive furniture. As I was leaving the meeting, I nearly collided with someone in the hallway. I looked up to apologize and froze. It was Sophie. But it wasn't Sophie as I knew her. This woman wore an elegant navy blue dress and heels. Her hair was professionally styled. She carried a leather briefcase and was surrounded by 3 people in business suits, who were clearly waiting on her every word. Our eyes met, and I saw shock register on her face, quickly followed by something that looked like resignation. "Daniel," she said quietly. "Sophie?" I couldn't process what I was seeing. "What are you doing here?" One of the men with her spoke up. "Ms. Hartwell has a meeting with the board in 5 minutes. Ms. Hartwell. The name hit me, like a physical blow. Hartwell, as in Hartwell Industries, as in the company that employed me, the company that had been in the Hartwell family for 3 generations. "You're—" I couldn't finish the sentence. Sophie, or whoever she really was, turned to her companions. "Give me a few minutes, please." It wasn't a request. They immediately stepped away. She touched my arm gently. "Can we talk? Privately?" I followed her in a daze to a small conference room. She closed the door and leaned against it, closing her eyes for a moment before looking at me. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have told you from the beginning." "Told me what? That you're the owner's daughter? That you've been playing some kind of game with my family?" The hurt and betrayal were rising in my chest. "It wasn't a game," she said firmly. "Please let me explain. My father is Charles Hartwell. I'm his only child. I grew up with every privilege you can imagine, but I was also incredibly lonely and isolated. Everyone who came into my life wanted something from me or my family. Money, connections, opportunities." She walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot below. "After I finished graduate school, I started working in the family business, but I felt so disconnected from everything. The people here see me as the boss's daughter, not as a person. They're careful around me, political. I realized I didn't have a single genuine relationship in my life. So you decided to what? Pretend to be someone else?" I wanted to know what it felt like to be valued for who I am. "Not what I have," she said, turning back to me. "I put up that card at the coffee shop on a whim. I thought maybe I could help a family and just be normal for a while." "Normal?" The word came out harsher than I intended. "You lied to me, Sophie. Or is that even your real name?" "It's my real first name," she said softly. "Sophia Catherine Hartwell. I've always gone by Sophie with friends." "Friends?" I repeated bitterly. "Is that what we are? Did you think this was funny? The single dad struggling to make ends meet, working for your family's company, and you're playing babysitter? No!" She stepped toward me, her eyes filling with tears. "Daniel, please listen to me. When I met you and the girls, something changed. I wasn't pretending anymore. Those afternoons with Lily and Rose became the best part of my days. They didn't care that I could buy them anything they wanted. They just wanted me to play with them, to listen to their stories, to care about them." She wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. "And you You treated me with respect. You trusted me with the most precious things in your life. You asked about my day and actually listened. Do you know how rare that is for me? How rare it is to be seen as just a person. I wanted to stay angry, but I could hear the truth in her words. I thought about the past 3 months, about how natural Sophie had felt in our lives, how the girls had blossomed under her care, how I'd found myself looking forward to seeing her, to those brief conversations when I came home from work. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my anger fading into hurt. At some point, you must have known this couldn't last. I know, she said. I was selfish. I didn't want it to end. I didn't want you to look at me differently, to start seeing me as the boss's daughter instead of just Sophie. I knew once you found out, everything would change. You're right about that, I said. Everything has changed? She nodded, looking down at her expensive shoes. I understand. I'll arrange for a proper babysitter for the girls. Someone vetted and professional. I'll make sure you have the best care available, and I won't charge you anything. Stop, I interrupted. Just stop. This isn't about money or arrangements. Then what is it about? I took a deep breath, trying to organize my thoughts. It's about trust, Sophie. My girls have been through so much. They lost their mother. They've had people come and go from their lives, and they fell in love with you. Do you understand that? They talk about you constantly. Rose told her teacher you're like a fairy godmother. Lily said you're the best friend she's ever had. Sophie's face crumpled. I never wanted to hurt them, or you. I know, I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, I believed her. But you did. And now I have to figure out how to explain this to 2 7-year-old girls who don't understand why the person they've come to depend on has to leave. Does she have to leave? The voice came from the doorway. We both turned to see an elderly man standing there in an impeccable suit. He had Sophie's eyes and her determined chin. Charles Hartwell. Daddy, Sophie said, surprised. What are you doing here? I came looking for you when you didn't show up for the board meeting, he said, stepping into the room, and I found myself overhearing a very interesting conversation. He looked at me with keen intelligence. You're Daniel Crawford. You've worked in our maintenance department for what, 15 years? 16, I said automatically. Your supervisors speak very highly of you. Reliable, skilled, honest. He turned to his daughter. Is all of this true, Sophia? You've been working as this man's babysitter? Yes, she said, lifting her chin. And I'm not sorry I did it. To my surprise, Charles Hartwell smiled. Good. It's about time you did something real, with your life instead of sitting in boardrooms, pretending to care about profit margins. Sophie looked as shocked as I felt. You're not angry? Angry? My dear girl, I'm relieved. Your mother, God rest her soul, worried constantly that we'd raised you in a bubble. She always said you needed to see how real people lived, to understand what actually matters in life. He looked at me again. May I ask you something, Mr. Crawford? Daniel, I said. And yes, sir. Did you know who my daughter was when you hired her? No, sir. I had no idea. And when you found out just now, what was your first concern?